She thought her daughter was blind, until the new maid uncovered a shocking family secret. Ruby Thompson sat in the dimly lit room, her mind racing as she considered the gravity of her daughter's condition. Emma, just 7 years old, had been labeled blind by doctors since birth. Shrouded in mystery, Ruby had accepted her fate with a heavy heart, trailing behind Emma as they navigated life in their sprawling, creaky old house. The air was thick with secrets. It felt as if the very walls whispered the answers she desperately sought. And now, with a new maid in their home, her heart quickened with a strange mix of hope and fear. Adjusting the dusty lace curtains, a skeletal hand of sunlight crept through, illuminating a small trinket, a forgotten porcelain doll, its eyes eerily painted wide open. Ruby could swear she'd seen that doll move once, but she brushed it off as mere imagination. But those huge eyes. Did they flicker? It was Miss Carter, the new maid, who stirred everything up. With her piercing green eyes and an unnerving calm, she seemed to know more than she let on. One morning, while dusting the family portraits, she stopped abruptly. A shiver trickled down the back of Ruby's neck when Miss Carter clutched the edge of one old frame and muttered, "Secrets buried can't remain hidden forever." Ruby's breath caught in her throat. What did she mean? The days passed, rain drumming steadily against the windows while unease threaded through Ruby's thoughts. Emma spent hours playing in her own world, but lately, Ruby noticed something odd. The way Emma turned her head, following sounds that seemed to dart around the room like startled mice. It was as if her eyes didn't understand the limits of their supposed blindness. Ruby's heartbeat roared in her ears. What if her little girl could see? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As Ruby stood there, uncertainty wrapped around her like a dense fog. Had Miss Carter discovered something about Emma? Had the maid turned this household upside down with whispers of truths that might shatter Ruby's world? Just then, the creaking floorboards echoed, and Emma's laughter pierced the silence, but there was a hint of something, fear or joy. It sent goosebumps racing down Ruby's arms. As she turned to her daughter, she was caught off guard by the sudden glint in Emma's eyes, as if they held the key to answers lost in time. Was it just a reflection, or had she seen something clear and true? And as the clock ticked ominously in the background, Ruby's heart pounded. What unseemly revelation was about to unravel? Ruby's breath hitched as she faced Emma. The glimmer in her daughter's eyes seemed to dance with unspoken truths, secrets waiting to escape. The laughter faded into a heavy silence that filled the room, pressing itself against Ruby's chest. "Emma," she whispered, her voice barely above a murmur. "Can you see me?" The little girl tilted her head, a curious expression sweeping across her face. "Mommy, I can see the colors." "The light what?" Ruby's heart raced. Every instinct screamed at her to probe, to demand answers, but fear gripped her tongue. "What do you mean?" "I can see past the dark. There are shadows, they whisper to me." Emma's voice dropped to a conspiratorial tone, and Ruby shivered, drawn into the chilling darkness of her words. "They tell me things about you, about Daddy." "About Daddy?" Ruby's pulse quickened. "What things?" Emma's face clouded over, suddenly serious. "You have to be careful, Mommy. The shadows are scared." "What do you mean?" Ruby pressed, desperate. But Emma shook her head, her small hands covering her ears. "No more. They're too loud. I can't." Ruby felt her heart plummet. What was happening to her little girl? Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the hallway. Ruby spun around, dread pooling in her stomach. She dashed toward the sound, her pulse drumming in her ears. The front door swung open, and Miss Carter stood framed in the doorway, an unsettling calm on her face, as if she had been there all along, watching. "I thought I might find you both here," she said smoothly. Her green eyes actually sparkled. Was that mischief flickering there? "Ruby couldn't tell. I have something to show you. Something important about this house." "What do you know about Emma?" Ruby demanded, her voice sharper than intended. "Just that she sees things most children cannot." Miss Carter's smile was unsettling, like a cat toying with its prey. "Would you like to know more, Ruby?" "Stop." Ruby's voice rose, shaking with anger and fear. "You're scaring her." Emma stood frozen, staring past Miss Carter, into the enveloping shadows of the hallway. "The shadows want out," she whispered, a tremor running through her tiny frame. Ruby turned to her daughter, desperation clawing at her insides. "What do you mean, Emma? What are the shadows?" Miss Carter stepped forward, invading their space. "We are too close to the truth to turn back now. But there are layers to this house, Ruby. Layers you've yet to uncover. The doll, the portraits, they hold fragments of your family's past." "Enough!" Ruby yelled, stepping protectively in front of Emma. "Get away from her." The maid laughed softly, an unsettling sound that reverberated through the hallway. "You cannot protect her from the past, Ruby. It's already here." Ruby felt a chill crawl up her spine. Could it be true? Had the shadows really come for them? Then, in that moment of overwhelming confusion, the porcelain doll fell from its shelf, shattering into pieces that scattered across the floor. In the silence that followed, Emma gasped, her eyes growing wide. "Mommy! The shadows, they're angry." As Ruby glanced down at the doll's shattered pieces, a glimmer caught her eye, a tiny paper with a name scrawled across it, a name that sent her heart racing. She reached for it, trembling, her pulse hammering in her ears. What name would she find? What revelation was waiting for her next? And just like that, Ruby knew the secrets buried within her family's past were clawing to be unleashed, threatening everything she held dear. As she stared at that tiny slip of paper, the clock ticked ominously again. What had she stirred? Was it too late to uncover the truth without consequence? The walls around her whispered too, urging her deeper into the darkness. Ruby's fingers shook as she unfolded the tiny slip of paper. Her breath caught in her throat. The name printed in old-fashioned cursive was as unsettling as it was familiar. It sent shockwaves through her, echoing in her mind like a thunderclap. Emily. It was her grandmother's name, a woman Ruby had always associated with shadows and whispers, stories murmured in the dead of night. "Who's Emily?" Emma asked, her wide eyes seeking answers Ruby couldn't give. She's someone from my past," Ruby stammered, clutching the paper tightly. The shadows Emma spoke of pressed in closer, wrapping around them like thick fog. "Mommy, the shadows are getting stronger." Emma's little voice trembled, and Ruby's heart raced. They had to escape this darkness. But where? "Emma, listen to me," she said, squatting down to meet her daughter's frightened gaze. "We're going to find Daddy, okay? We need to go now." As Ruby reached for Emma's hand, the air felt heavy, charged with a crackling energy. The shadows flickered at the edges of her vision. A breath, a whisper, seemed to rise from the remnants of the doll. Ruby pressed closer to her daughter, the need to protect her surging like a tidal wave. "Stay close," she urged, ushering Emma toward the front door. But Miss Carter stepped forward, blocking their exit. "Leaving so soon?" she purred, tilting her head with a disconcerting smile. "You wouldn't want to miss what lies within the walls, would you? What Emily has hidden for so long." "Stop!" Ruby shouted, her voice breaking. She felt as if the room itself was closing in around them. She would not allow this stranger to ensnare her child. But before she could push past Ms. Carter, a rush of wind swept through the hallway, snuffing out the dim light and plunging them into darkness. The shadows deepened, twisting and writhing like something alive. Ruby felt a heat behind her eyes, a strange flicker of light, a warning shimmering just beyond comprehension. "Mommy!" Emma yelled, the terror suffusing her voice. "Hold my hand!" Ruby cried, feeling her daughter's small grip tighten around her fingers. Then, in the suffocating silence, a sob broke through the darkness. It was deep and gut-wrenching, echoing off the walls. It was a sound as if the house itself were mourning, revealing secrets buried too long. "Do you see now?" Ms. Carter's voice was smug, as though relishing the unfolding chaos. "They're crying for you, Ruby. For answers, for truths. You're a part of this legacy." "I don't want to be part of any legacy," Ruby shouted back, desperation fueling her. "Let us go." But the shadows retaliated, surging forward like a torrential wave, tugging at Ruby's heart. She felt Emma's tiny body press against hers, both of them trembling under the weight of something far beyond their comprehension. Perhaps it was not just the house that was haunted, it was them. "Mommy, what do they want?" Emma whispered, her voice tiny, fragile. In that moment, glimmers of light flickered again, illuminating a corner of the room. Ruby squinted through the shadows, the unsettling calm on Miss Carter's face symbolizing a storm brewing, waiting to unleash its fury. "They want us to listen," Ruby breathed, feeling an unsettling connection to the unexplainable pull. "Listen to what?" Emma whimpered. "To Emily's story, and the darkness that follows." As Ruby fought through the fear clinging to her, she felt the house shake with a low rumble. Would she dare explore what lay beneath? Could opening those doors lead to salvation or destruction? Suddenly, the shadows coalesced into a shape, a gaunt figure floating just outside of Ruby's reach, beckoning her to follow. As she gazed deeper, her stomach dropped with the question, what would she truly uncover, and at what cost? The figure in the shadows shifted, barely materializing but undeniably present. Ruby's pulse quickened, each beat thrumming in her ears like a drumroll before a fateful reveal. The gaunt silhouette bore an unsettling resemblance to the family portraits hanging in the hallway, especially the one of Grandma Emily, her expression an eerie mix of sadness and urgency. "Mommy, who is that?" Emma's voice cut through the thick air. She leaned closer to her mother, her tiny frame trembling against Ruby's leg as if seeking refuge from the impending storm. I don't know," Ruby stuttered, her gaze locked on the figure. "But we can't stay here. We have to go." Emma squeezed Ruby's hand tighter, her nails digging into Ruby's palm, grounding her to the present. She backed away from the figure, moving toward the door, but Miss Carter's presence loomed large, an immovable wall. "Fear not the shadows, dear Ruby," Miss Carter said with a serpentine smile. "They are merely messengers. They carry echoes of truths long buried. Don't you want to know what really happened to Emily?" "No." Ruby's voice echoed inside her chest, a sudden surge of defiance. "We need to leave. Now." But as she spoke, the room vibrated with an eerie energy, the walls seeming to breathe, soaked with decades of sorrow and secrets. The shadows slithered closer, making it impossible to see clearly. The sobs intensified, a melancholic symphony that tugged at Ruby's heartstrings, inviting her deeper. "Mommy, I'm scared," Emma trembled, glancing back at the dark shape that lingered just out of reach. At that moment, Ruby noticed something glinting on the floor, a silver locket that shimmered faintly in the dim light. Instinctively, she bent down, her fingers trembling as they brushed against the cold metal. It felt familiar. She knew this locket, it belonged to her grandmother. "Mommy, look!" Emma whispered, pointing toward the figure that now seemed to hesitate, as if waiting for Ruby's decision. Ruby picked up the locket, the image of her grandmother encased within, feeling almost alive, her gaze imploring. Swallowing hard, Ruby's heart raced as memories flooded back, sunlit afternoons, haunting lullabies, dark warnings, and words unspoken. What had her grandmother tried to tell her? "Why did you never tell me, Grandma?" Ruby murmured, holding the locket tightly. The shadows shifted, forming a swirling mass around the figure, which began to slowly take shape: a face, gaunt and weary, eyes brimming with untold stories. Ruby's breath hitched as she felt the pulse of the house beneath her feet, each beat resonating with her own heartbeat, creating a resonance that seemed to thrum against her very soul. "Ruby," the figure whispered, the air thick with a longing that transcended time and space. "It's time you learned the truth. I don't want any part of this." Ruby shouted, but even as she spoke, she felt the tremors beneath her, as if the very foundation of her identity was shifting. Suddenly, the room erupted in whispers, overlapping, urgent. She could hear disembodied voices, chiding and soft, weaving in and out of clarity. Secrets buried for too long danced on the edge of her consciousness, filling the void with promises and fears. "Mommy, I can't hear them," Emma whimpered, her small hand slipping from Ruby's grip for a heartbeat, reaching toward the figure. "Don't touch that!" Ruby cried, lunging forward just as the shadows seemed to close in. This was bigger than her, bigger than anything she could comprehend. "Come on. We have to leave." Ruby shouted again, trying to tug Emma back, but an invisible force held them both, drawing them into the depths of the hallway where light began to bend and stretch just beyond the threshold. The shadows pulsed, the cries crescendoing, and Ruby's mind raced. Was she ready to face the echoes of the past? Or would those revelations drown them both? The key lies within Emily's truth. Miss Carter's voice rang out, laughter dancing through the dark, and in that moment, Ruby realized facing Emily meant facing herself. How far would she go for answers? Would the truth be worth the price, or would it destroy everything she loved? Just as the whispers swelled to a breaking point, the shadows surged forth, and Ruby braced herself for impact, the darkness swirling and pulling her closer to an unspeakable truth that awaited. What was Emily hiding? What darkness lived within Ruby's blood? With her heart pounding, Ruby took a step forward, determined to unveil the legacy, but at what cost? Ruby's heart thundered in her chest as the shadows closed in, wrapping around her like a thick fog. She clutched the locket, the cool metal grounding her amid the encroaching dread. The whispers grew louder, desperate echoes of a time when her grandmother still walked this earth. Each voice carried a weight, the sorrow tinged with urgency. "Let her go!" Ruby yelled, instinctively pulling Emma close, but the small girl protested, her curious eyes widening at the figure before them. "Mommy, she's sad," Emma said softly, her voice barely a whisper. "Maybe she needs help." Emma, no. Panic clawed at Ruby's insides as she watched her daughter inch closer to the shadowy form. "We need to go." "Help?" The figure's voice was a blend of pain and hope. "You must hear the truth, Ruby. Only then can you save her. Save all of us." A chill swept through the room, fluttering the curtains like phantom wings. The air grew heavy, charged with an electric tension, pulling Ruby toward the figure as though gravity itself were shifting. "Mommy, please." Emma's small hand slipped from Ruby's grasp again, reaching out to the uncertainty that loomed ahead. Each step her daughter took extinguished the warmth of Ruby's resolve, like a candle snuffed in darkness. "Emma, don't." Ruby lunged forward just as the shadows coiled tighter around the figure, defining its features: a sad, gaunt face, strikingly similar to Ruby's own. Her breath hitched. Could this truly be her grandmother? "Your blood binds us, Ruby. Your light can lift the veils of the past and uncover what lies beneath." Emily's visage pleaded, an agony of years unsaid haunting her eyes. "You must unearth the truth to save your family. Leave us alone." Ruby screamed, desperation fueling her voice. But beneath her rising fear, a flicker of curiosity ignited. What could this truth reveal? What sins were hidden in her lineage? "Embrace what you fear, and the path will emerge." The shadows around Emily flickered in time with the pounding of Ruby's heart, an eerie connection forging between them. The presence of Ms. Carter loomed, an unsettling fixation that only deepened the dread. "Let her speak, Ruby," Ms. Carter urged, her tone shifting into something almost conspiratorial. "You're tied to this legacy, whether you wish to be or not. Can you deny the voices calling to you?" "Enough!" Ruby shouted, frustration boiling over. The temptation was unbearable. What if everything she knew was a lie? The sobs, the cries, they changed her, they revealed flickers of regret and sorrow but also undeniable yearning. "Tell me then. What happened?" "Your mother never forgave me for the choices I made, a pact sealed in shadows," Emily whispered, her voice breaking as if her essence had become intertwined with the very walls of the house. "But it's not too late to mend what was broken." "Mommy," Emma whimpered, tears glistening in her eyes. "The lady is sad. She's crying." Ruby's chest tightened. The cries were real, binding her to this moment. How could she turn her back on her own blood? The locket pulsed in her grip, urging her to listen, to seek the answer woven through generations. "Step through the shadows with me. Only then can we mend the rift." Emily extended her hand, beckoning Ruby closer, the shadows swirling in sync with Emily's movement, alive with a pulse of hope intertwined with sorrow. The room crackled with an energy that filled the air with an unyielding rockiness. Would she be strong enough to traverse this darkness? To confront the truths that had been buried under burdens of shame? Just as Ruby hesitated, a distant crash echoed from the depths of the house, shattering the heavy atmosphere like glass. Fear ripped through Ruby. Something else lurked in the house, something malignant. "Emma, we're not safe here." Ruby's instincts kicked in, and she turned to flee. But the shadows pulled tighter, sealing their fate as disgruntled whispers shifted into a deafening roar. "Bravery, dear Ruby." Ms. Carter's serpentine voice cut through the chaos. "The truth lies deeper than you dare to venture. Will you run, or will you confront what lies ahead?" The room swirled, confusion enveloping Ruby's mind. All she wanted was safety, for Emma to be spared the horror she felt closing in around them. The shadows danced dangerously, tempting, seducing her with the promise of knowledge, of closure. But at what cost? Before she could respond, a figure darted from the shadows, a blurred silhouette with wild, frantic movements. Ruby's heart stopped. Who, or what, had just emerged from within the darkness? The answer hurtled toward them, threatening to shatter more than just the secrets. What awaited them in that suffocating darkness? The figure lunged forward, a flurry of motion that sent Ruby stumbling back. Emma gasped, her eyes wide, reflecting the chaotic dance of shadows and whispers around them. In the flickering light, Ruby finally caught a glimpse of the silhouette, a woman, disheveled and frantic, her gaze darting nervously, as if every heartbeat was a countdown to something horrific. "Stop!" Ruby shouted, her voice struggling to pierce through the thick dread that clung to the air like smoke. "Who are you?" "Ruby, look out!" Ms. Carter's voice cut through the tension, urgency lacing her tone. But it was too late. The woman's outstretched hand collided with Ruby's shoulder, a jolt of icy energy shooting through her, freezing her marrow and leaving her breathless. Ruby tried to pry the woman's hand away, but it felt glued to her skin, a grip of desperation. "Help me!" the stranger cried, a wild desperation echoing through the space. "I was trapped. You have to break the cycle." "What cycle?" "Let go of me." Ruby panted, her heart racing. Emily's face shuddered into focus beside them, her spectral features merging with the chaos. "This is Rebecca," she said, her voice strained. "She's part of the truth you seek. She was my sister, the one they never spoke of." Emma clung to Ruby's leg, shaking her head. "Mommy, I don't like this. It's too scary." Ignoring her daughter's pleas, Ruby focused on the woman Rebecca, whose eyes were now gleaming with fear and desperation. "You think you're stuck? You have no idea what's coming." Insistent whispers surrounded them, growing louder and more frantic, drowning out her thoughts. Each frantic pulse pulled her deeper into the shadows, threatening to swallow them whole. "Trust me, Ruby. The truth is worse than the nightmares." Rebecca's breath was ragged, her eyes wide with an urgency that mirrored Ruby's inner turmoil. Ms. Carter's looming figure interjected, a shadow against shadow. "The past demands to be confronted. You can't shy away from what must be revealed." But hesitation clawed at Ruby's heart. How could she trust any of them? The dark glimmer of the locket in her hand flashed like a warning, reminding her of the real danger. "Let me help," Rebecca pleaded, dropping to her knees, her voice thick with emotion. "The pain I carry binds us. We can stop the cycle of blame, of hatred. But you have to break the chain." A distant rumble reverberated through the floor, as if the house itself was alive, angry. Ruby's instincts screamed for her to run, but the fear of the unknown kept her rooted in place. What could this fragile woman possibly reveal? Mommy Emma's whisper broke through Ruby's thoughts, pulling her back from the precipice of indecision. "I don't want to go. Just give me a moment," Ruby said, torn between protection and the pull of intrigue that hung thick in the air. "Mommy, please." Emma's small voice wobbled, pressing into Ruby's resolve. "I have a bad feeling." The shadows pulsated around them, vibrant and menacing, as if the house breathed in sync with their growing tension. Would listening to Rebecca lead to salvation or doom? Suddenly, the room trembled as if answering Ruby's silent question. The shadows thickened, malevolent whispers sharpening into distinct voices, angry, accusatory. "Time is running out." Rebecca's voice shrieked above the roar, clawing its way into Ruby's mind. "You have to unlock the door. We can break free." With a fierce rush of emotion, Ruby's mind raced. "Door? What door?" As if in answer, the walls began to shift, dimly illuminated symbols swirling and coiling around her. They beckoned with promises of enlightenment and destruction. "Fight back, Ruby," Emily urged, her spirit tangling into the fabric of reality like a moth into flames. "You can't let fear consume you. You must choose the path to your family's salvation or face the darkness that lingers." Ruby's heart thundered as cold sweat trickled down her back. Every instinct warned her to flee, but the truth hung like a fragile glass ornament, precious and dangerous. Would she dare lift the veil and step into the darkness, as the shadows danced and the looming mystery pressed on her? Ruby took a gasping breath, her mind reeling. The memories waited to be uncovered. What hidden truths lay just beyond the door they were meant to unlock? And more terrifying, was Ruby strong enough to bear the weight of what she might find? The air grew thick with anticipation, swirling around Ruby like an unseen predator preparing to pounce. She could feel the heat of Emma's small body pressed against her leg, a constant reminder of what was at stake. The shadows danced around them, whispering secrets long buried in the corners of the house's history, waiting to ensnare anyone brave enough to uncover them. "This is it," Rebecca murmured, her hand still clinging to Ruby's shoulder. "We can't hesitate any longer. You have to trust me." But trust was a fragile thing. The way Rebecca's eyes flickered with fear only deepened Ruby's growing anxiety. What kind of truth was she asking Ruby to confront? What would that mean for her and Emma? Mommy Emma whimpered once more, her voice a soft echo in the turmoil. "I don't want to see the monsters. Please, let us go." The haunting wails of the shadows took on a sharper tone, urgent and insistent, and Ruby's heart pounded in rhythm with the threats curling around her. Were the monsters truly waiting to be unleashed? Each heartbeat felt like a countdown. Ruby felt the weight of her daughter's fear juxtaposed against her own urgency as she oscillated between action and inertia. "Emma," Ruby whispered, leaning down to meet her daughter's fearful gaze. "I need to know what's happening. Just a little longer, I promise." A flicker of something, fear, defiance, perhaps hope, sparked in Emma's eyes, but it was quickly extinguished as the shadows breathed closer, taunting them. Rebecca's grip tightened, pulling Ruby back from the precipice of indecision. We have to break through. The door isn't just a door, it's a gateway to everything that binds our fates. Ruby's pulse quickened. What do you mean? What door? The door of memories. Rebecca exclaimed, urgency flooding her voice. The one that holds the truth of our family's past. The one that connects us all. With a violent shudder, the house groaned, its very foundation complaining under the weight of ancient secrets. A booming crack echoed through the hall, startling every soul into silence. The floor began to vibrate around them, strong enough to rattle Ruby's bones. She had to act quickly or risk being consumed by the chaos. Focus, Ruby. Emily urged, her voice growing stronger. You have the power to change everything. You can either break the chains or hold on to them. Panic clawed at Ruby's throat. What if she chose wrong? What if the darkness swallowed them whole? Yet, deep down, she felt the flip of courage pressing against her fear, the desire to protect Emma, to break the cycle that had haunted their family for generations. All right. Ruby forced out, gathering her strength. Show me. Rebecca's eyes widened, that urgent spark igniting into something more. Together, we can unlock it. Just take a breath and believe. The symbols on the walls ignited, illuminating the space with a strange, spectral glow. The sweet scent of jasmine danced through the air, clashing with the swirling dread that enveloped them. Now! Rebecca shouted, motioning toward a darkened corner, where an ancient door had materialized, standing ominously against a backdrop of chaos. Ruby took a step forward, each footfall feeling like a step deeper into a shadowy abyss. What lies beyond? She whispered, barely above a breath. Everything you need to know, Rebecca said, her fear momentarily replaced by fierce determination. But beware, the past has its own way of seeking retribution. Just then, a violent crash reverberated through the walls, shaking every ounce of resolve Ruby had. The darkness beckoned like the maw of a beast, hot breath brushing against her skin. Do you want to know? Rebecca pressed, holding Ruby's gaze with a mix of desperation and hope. Ruby felt her breath quicken, her heart pounding against her ribcage. Was she truly ready for whatever lay beyond? Would she be able to face the truth about her family, facing down what she feared most? The door loomed before her, swollen with mystery and danger, whispering promises and threats alike. Let us go. Ruby breathed, and with that, she grasped the door handle, her heart racing wildly as she swung it open, unaware of the unspeakable horrors and revelations waiting just beyond. But the shadows coiled tighter as a chilling laughter rippled through the air, echoing the words that chilled her to the bone. You have no idea what you're unleashing. What awaited Ruby and Emma just inside could change everything, and not all truths were meant to be uncovered. Ruby stepped through the door, anticipation gnawing at her stomach like a feral beast. The darkness enveloped her, wrapping her in a heavy shroud that made it hard to breathe. She squeezed Emma's hand tighter, desperate for the comfort of her small warmth. This wasn't just a door, it was a threshold between reality and something unfathomable, something that whispered promises of revelations but also carried the weight of danger. With each step into the gloom, shadows flickered and twisted, casting eerie silhouettes that flashed across the floor like specters. Ruby strained her eyes to see, but the darkness persisted, thick and alive. Then, like a burst of sunlight slicing through the clouds, pale light spilled from the depths of the room, making her squint. Mommy! Emma cried, voice nervous and small, her fear palpable. Ruby turned back, meeting those wide, innocent eyes. I'm here, sweetheart. Just stay close. The sound of her own voice felt hollow among the shadows, echoing as if the house itself was repeating her reassurance in mockery. Rebecca stepped forward, her silhouette merging with the light. We need to look for the answers, Ruby. They're buried in the walls, in the dusty corners of this place. Our memories. A low rumble rippled through the floor, interrupting her. The shadows recoiled as if the house was reacting to the weight of their quest. Ruby took a hesitant step deeper into the room, her senses heightened, each sound amplified: the creaks of the floorboards, the flutter of fabric, the cold draft that brushed against her face like a warning. There, in the center of the room, lay a massive, ornate mirror, its glass fractured and clouded over with dust. Ruby felt drawn to it, a magnetic pull like a compass pointing to a hidden truth. Is this it? Is this what we need to face? She asked, voice barely a whisper, hanging in the thick atmosphere. Rebecca nodded, her expression grave. That mirror holds the past. It reflects what we've buried deep inside, buried so well we've forgotten it exists. But be careful, it shows not just who we are, but who we were and who we can become. Ruby swallowed hard, her heart racing. The notion that the mirror could unlock memories, expose familial truths, terrified her. What if the secrets hidden within were darker than she could bear? But before she could voice her fears, the mirror's surface began to shimmer, the glass swirling like water disturbed. Ruby pressed forward, instinct taking over, her breath quickening as visions danced across the eerie surface. She saw her house, but it was different. Vibrant and alive, laughter echoing eerily against the walls. Family gatherings, faces smiling, filled with love that felt both comforting and foreign. But just then crimson flashes tore through the joyful scenes. Voices raised in anger. A figure cloaked in darkness loomed over another, fists raised, then nothing but silence. "Mommy." Emma's voice broke through, trembling. "I don't like this." "Neither do I," Ruby admitted with a shudder. Everything she saw felt like it struck her to the core, shadows of her ancestors reaching out like ghostly fingers, grasping for acknowledgement. She turned to Rebecca, her own voice shaking. "What if we see something we shouldn't? What if we can't handle it?" Rebecca squeezed Ruby's arm. "We can't run away. Running away is what got us here in the first place. We have to confront it." As Ruby stood before the mirror, her pulse quickened and her mind raced with uncertainty. The image stabilized, focusing in. Those familiar faces, now twisted in panic. Their eyes darkened with despair. She felt sweat bead on her forehead, the heat of dread building like an inferno within her, and then she saw him. The figure watching from the darkness, hidden among the faces she knew and loved. A twist of recognition sent a chill through her bones. "Who is that?" Ruby gasped, pointing as the figure in the shadows stepped closer, cloaked in a veil of smoke, a sinister grin stretching across its face like a predator with its prey. Just as she processed the horrifying realization, the door slammed shut behind them, locking them in. A cold laugh echoed menacingly in the air, and the mirror surged with chaotic images, the shadows swirling, morphing. Ruby's heart pounded fiercely. What truth had she uncovered? What power did that figure hold? As the visions pressed closer, Ruby knew one thing for certain: they were not alone. They had unleashed something far beyond their understanding. And the question loomed like a storm brewing on the horizon: would they survive the truth waiting to be revealed? Ruby's heart raced as the cold laugh faded, leaving a silence so thick it felt suffocating. The mirror pulsed with energy, its surface still swirling, refusing to settle. Emma clung to her, her small frame trembling, grounding Ruby even in the rising uncertainty. "Don't look, Mommy," Emma squeaked, burying her face in Ruby's side, but it was too late. Ruby felt herself magnetized, unwillingly drawn to the glass. Ruby started, but she was cut off as the figure in the shadows stepped fully into view. The laughter still echoed, now mingling with a chant, a litany of lost names and forgotten memories weaving through the room. "Identify, face your truth." The ominous voice rose, echoing like a distant storm. With every whispered syllable, memories flooded the mirror, images of traumas and scars that lay buried, memories missed and overlooked, painting the picture of a family intertwined with secrets too painful to confront. The figure reached a skeletal hand towards Ruby, its face still shrouded yet disturbingly familiar. "Join us, embrace the past." The shadows around it writhed, almost alive, reaching for Ruby's memories as if searching for a long-lost piece of itself. No! Ruby screamed, stepping backward as panic struck her, choking her thoughts. She mustn't give in. But the whisper was compelling, each word heavier than the last. It slithered through her mind, hitting vulnerabilities left untouched. You know who I am. You know. The darkness deepened, pulling and tugging like a relentless tide threatening to drown her reason. Emma's small hands gripped her tighter, disbelief twisting Ruby's gut as she caught the first glimmer of those elusive truths. What happened to Grandma? Emma asked, her innocent voice slicing through the tension. At the taste of that question, the air crackled. Ruby turned to Emma, fear etched into every line of her face, tears welling in her eyes as the truth gnawed at her. I can't protect you from this, can I? She whispered, but deep down, she knew. Emma had to see, everything hinged on the truth. Don't. Rebecca's voice faltered as she stepped closer, the weight of dread pulling her down, her very essence caught between running toward the truth and away from it. Stop! Ruby shouted, her voice breaking with determination. We can't let it take us. But it was too late. The mirror surged violently, colors whirling, images of sorrow and heartbreak exploding around them. Ruby's memories intermingled with those of her ancestors, sharing secrets like a family heirloom left in the dark. Shouting erupted, tears flowed, laughter twisted into despair. All the echoes resonated within the confined room, consuming their fragile state of being, and just like that, as the chaos threatened to consume them whole, the figures in the mirror froze, time slowed, and Ruby gasped, her breath catching as she found herself staring at a young girl in the reflection. Her face mirrored Emma's, yet there was something profoundly disturbing in that resemblance. That familiar yet foreign face twisted in sheer agony, framed by tears that seemed never-ending. Mommy! Emma's small voice cut through the silence. Is that me? Ruby felt her throat tighten, realization hitting harder than anything she had ever experienced. That can't be. How do you? Suddenly, the mirror cracked, lines spiraling like spiderwebs, breaking the illusion, and Ruby grasped for understanding. In the background, a small laughter tumbled from the shadows, morphed by the rising unease, as an echo made it clear that this was just the beginning. Who are we? Ruby gasped, heart thundering as the reality began to settle in. What had they awakened? A new chill washed over her the moment the door swung open, revealing a blinding light, promising escape but filled with uncertainty. Run! Rebecca urged, her composure fading, but as they moved towards the threshold, the sinister figure lingered behind them, a haze of smoke enveloping it, its grin widening, mocking their desperate escape. The horror of their shared past was within reach as they stepped into a world where truth and darkness swallowed reality whole. How many more secrets are hidden in this house? Ruby thought, glancing back one last time as dread seeped into her bones, because if that twisted reflection was only the beginning, what else were they about to uncover? Ruby stood at the threshold, the door now wide open. Light poured in, illuminating the remnants of shadows tangled in her past. With trembling hands, she held on to Emma, who looked up at her with wide eyes filled with uncertainty. Mommy, where are we going? Emma asked, her voice small yet echoing with courage. Somewhere we can finally find the truth, Ruby replied, her voice steadier than she felt. Gripping the locket tightly, she moved forward into the brightness, dragging the weight of shadows with her. As they stepped through, the oppressive heaviness that had gripped the house began to lift, replaced by a refreshing breeze that washed over them like a cleansing tide. The air smelled sweet, like blooming flowers after rain, and the echoing cries that had accompanied them faded into the background. Behind them, the door slammed shut with a thunderous boom, sealing away the specters and the weight they carried. Ruby felt an overwhelming surge of relief, but something deep inside reminded her that the echoes of the past would need to be faced. Mommy, will they follow us? Emma whispered, glancing nervously over her shoulder. No, Ruby said with conviction. We're finally free from their grasp. But even as she spoke, she knew those words might not hold true. The truths were still tangled within them, the cycle of secrets would need to break. They entered a vibrant garden filled with colors bursting like fireworks. Flowers bloomed in shapes Ruby had never seen, casting a kaleidoscope of hues around them. In that moment, the shadows of fear melted away. Instead, hope filled the air, an energy that pulsed like the heartbeat of the earth itself. "Where are we?" Emma asked, her fear slowly replaced by wonder. "I think we're in a place of healing," Ruby said, taking a deep breath. "This is where we're meant to find our strength." The ground vibrated under their feet, as if in response to their encounter. She felt Emily's spirit flickering nearby, watching over them. Perhaps it was this light that could cleanse the remnants of darkness that had choked their family lineage for so long. "Mommy, look!" Emma gasped, her tiny hand pointing toward a shimmering figure emerging from the garden, a woman with gentle features resembling Ruby, an echo of family lost but not forgotten. "Emily," Ruby breathed, understanding dawning. The garden was a portal, a sanctum where familial bonds were made whole again. Emily stepped toward them, that familiar warmth radiating like spring sunlight. "Ruby, dear," Emily said, her voice tranquil yet powerful, "you must understand, the darkness is not your enemy. It is a part of you. Only by embracing it can you transform that pain into strength." "But how can I?" Ruby asked, tears brimming. "I don't want to carry this burden." "It is not a burden but a gift, one that allows you to see the past clearly. You hold the key to breaking the cycle. You, and Emma. Together, you will carry the light that will dispel the darkness." The bindings that had held Ruby felt lighter, and she knew then that even the hardest truths didn't have to haunt her. Together with Emma, she could forge a new path, one filled with understanding, one that would honor the pain while allowing for joy. "Will we ever be free of the shadows?" Emma asked, her innocence breaking through Ruby's fear. "We will learn to shine brighter, my love," Ruby assured, kneeling to embrace her daughter. "As long as we are together, the shadows will never define us." In that moment, Ruby felt the threads of her past unraveling, pulling her into a tapestry of renewed hope. Love and light intertwined, and the murmurs of the past faded into a chorus of warmth. "Thank you, Emily," Ruby whispered, understanding her grandmother's sacrifice, recognizing that forgiveness was a step toward freedom. The garden pulsed with life as they made their way forward, hand in hand. This was their new beginning, a journey where each step was a celebration of life, love, and an unbreakable bond. As they walked, Ruby glanced back at the door they had just left behind, understanding that it was not a conclusion, but a threshold, a bridge that had brought them closer to their truths, and just like that, Ruby felt the shadows slipping away, leaving behind only tomorrows filled with promise. Now it was time to craft a destiny free from fear. If you made it this far, you need to subscribe immediately. You don't want to miss out on the next exclusive story that can change everything. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and let others discover what awaits. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this incredible ending. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support makes all the difference.